My father taught me to play poker when I was 5 years of age. That's right, 5 years of age. Now, he would give me pocket money and take great pleasure in winning that money back from me again. And it taught me more about leadership than you can imagine. So today we're going to unpack three elements as a leader. One is mindset. Two is literally how you can become a strategic architect. And three is knowing when to fold them and when to hold them. So let's talk about mindset. What did I do when my father kept winning my pocket money back? Well, I doubled down. That's right, mindset. I doubled down. I kept looking at him. I kept observing his body language, and I kept looking at the way he played his hands. I knew all the nuances. Over time, I started to study him. I started to study his behavior, and I started to win more games. I wasn't equal with him, even in year 1 or year 2, but I was getting better. You see, I was prepared to play the long game. That's mindset, right? That's getting into the game and starting to observe. Now, the funny thing is, everybody else that started to play, I started to beat. But my father still had the upper hand. It would have been easy to say he's lucky, but I knew something. I knew he'd been playing a long time. And so I was just starting the game, right? And so I wanted to learn. I wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to have that mindset that was one day going to be equal to him. I would have been happy for that. So how did that translate into literally the workplace? Well, I went in with that mindset. I wanted to play the long game. I started to observe people's body language around me, sensory acuity. When you're playing poker, you know what your hand is. You don't think about yourself. You're so busy observing all the players, right? Well, it's the same in the workplace. It's literally the same in the workplace. So you can see why it allowed me to be a great leader in those negotiations, because I really took the time to understand people. Number 2, the strategic architect. Now I'm going to bring in the game of chess because I think that it's important to understand the players on the board. Who are these players? What are they about? Now, what's their locus of control and how much power do they have? How much can I influence them, and are they the decision makers? So in other words, are they the pawns on the table? Are they the ones that can't make the decisions? Because you have to know who's who in the zoo. If you want to be a strategic architect, then you literally have to think about who's important that you influence. You need to understand your influence strategy, right? So when you play chess, you have to be a master around that strategic approach. So what do you do when you play chess? Well, literally, you know the players, so you know the pawns. Now, every chess player says you know which one to move first, which is usually the pawn. You need to understand what the capabilities are of each piece on the board. So think about it. Who is the most influential piece on that chessboard? It's the queen, right? It's the queen. And so the queen can move anywhere, but if she's constrained, then she's going to really struggle to move. But if she positions herself right, then the floor is hers. Did you get that? If she positions herself right, then the floor is hers. So this is so important because when you're a strategic architect, you start to think differently. You start to position yourself differently, right? This is essential. So know who you have to influence. So if you're only influencing your direct superior, then how are you going to make the traction that you need to make? If you're always giving credit to everybody else, how are you going to influence the right people? If you're always trying to prove yourself, working harder, longer hours, that is not setting yourself up for success. That is allowing yourself to be a doormat. So once you know who the players are, then you can literally start thinking about your influence strategy, right? You know what cards people are holding in the room. You know how much room you've got to give. Most people go into the negotiation with a win mindset. I go in with a mutual benefit, but I've already dissected every single person in that room. I know what they're looking for. I know how to touch those buttons. I know how to use psychology to get movement in the room. I've recently updated the complete guide to identity anchoring. Now, inside is a diagnostic, and you can literally do the worth audit, find out which personality is holding you back, and not only that, but look at what's happening in the C-suite. If you want a copy, then DM me and I will send you the link. So, being a strategic architect means that you have to be one step ahead of everybody else, right? If you really want to progress your career, you have to be one step ahead of everybody, which means you have to understand the trends and you have to understand what people are looking at. But often ego gets in the way. I'll give you a very simple example. People send in the same CV, the same cover letter when they apply for jobs. I don't. What do? I research the company. I tailor my resume and my cover letter to the company. I look clearly at what they want and I design it and shape it to match that. That's strategy, right? When I go into a meeting, I don't go in to deliver what I want to say. I go in to deliver what they potentially want to hear, or I go in to solve a problem for people, right? That's about strategy. That's about getting noticed. When you're a strategic architect, then what you do is you start to position yourself around that chessboard really clearly. You might be the queen. You might be basically the knight, and you know that you could only move 2 steps forward and 1 across, right? So you know that you can only move in certain increments. But if you play the long game as a strategic architect, you will get there. So we've talked about the mindset of a leader, playing the long game. And we've talked about being a strategic architect, knowing the players on the board. And the third thing that we're going to talk about right now is literally around knowing when to hold them and when to fold them. And what happens is people get blindsided. They get moved on, they get made redundant, or they miss out on promotions and opportunities because they're literally not playing the game. They're literally not even on the chessboard, right? They're in the sidelines. They're watching the game being played and hoping that someone notices them. So when you understand this, you know when it's time to leave a company, you know when it's time to strategically position yourself for a role, and you know what you need to do to influence people around you. Now, this is really, really important. It's time to bring all three together. So firstly, as a leader, you're going to play the long game. That's right, the long game. You're going to actually increase your ability to observe people's body language and what they say. You're going to be more strategic. You're going to be the strategic architect of your career and have a career plan. And you're going to know who to influence and how to influence. And the third thing you're going to do is you're not going to sit on the sidelines. You're actually going to get in the game. And you're going to know when to influence, when to use restraint, and when to double down. Queens don't react, they play. If you've enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for listening. See you next time.